Morning. Today it's another journey to Newquay for MOT. So I've got to drive an hour to get an MOT because no one can squeeze me in. Even though I booked this one ages ago because we had COVID, so no one had an MOT, and MOT is your warrant of fitness to make sure your vehicle's in good fettle, should we say. And today we are joined by Rescue Dog Nala. Kisses. There is a few videos of Rescue Dog Nala. We've had her, 18 months now. She was a Dick, a JCDR, that's a charity Dick dog. So kind of got lumbered her from my partner who fell in love with her. And then when it jumped out of the car when we collected her, she went, oh, fuck. Because she's a big gal. And I said to her, when we saw her on the pictures, I said, oh, that's a big dog, that. And she went, no, she's super pequeño, she's so cute. She's so cute and tiny. And, yeah, guess what? She's not cute and tiny. She's a bitch dog, isn't ya? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Oh, look at that little dovelet. She's got little curtains in there and everything. Right, we've got 2 lanes? No, 1 lane. What's going on here? We should have 2 lanes open. So, today what I thought I'd waffle to you about, that's a really nice Nissan Micra in front of us. 20 plate. Just one of my jaunts, and one of my waffles to the camera, which people have been liking. Today, I was going to talk about Black Lives Matter, or should I say Cornish Lives Matter, because I think it's a bit of a farce. But today, I'm going to talk to you about the environment. Now, I'm 47, it's now 2021, okay? I left school with a real care for the environment. I collected, my mates were doing the Panini football sticker things, and I was doing ET and WWF sticker albums. So I think that says something about what type of person I was. And I left school knowing the difference between the greenhouse effect, the ozone layer, and global warming, and all the things that plastics do, even though we didn't have a lot of plastics in those days. And yet I've lived my life to try to be the most environmental person I can. Oh, we have a beeping noise. You know what that is, everyone? That is because my doggy is big and fat and the seatbelt is going on. There we go. So there you go. Alright. So, I left school with all that knowledge. I didn't have to be taught it. I didn't need David Attenborough teaching me what global warming was and everything else. I didn't need anyone telling me that to drop litter was stupid. I didn't need anyone telling me that if you drop litter it's going to end up in the sea eventually. Had a healthy interest in where my jobbies went down the toilet. So, knew about waste and what's the point of having a Lamborghini that does like 10 to the gallon. And if you notice, today we are in the Prius. Now, this is how weird I am. I always wanted an Insight or a Prius, okay? Now, as usual, I'm not in Cornwall anymore, I can't afford to live there. I'm living in Plymouth, beautiful place. I like Plymouth. All my Plymouth people watching, I like Plymouth. Didn't think I'd like Plymouth, but I love Plymouth, it's great. Really nice people, really great people. Kind of reminds me of New Zealand a little bit, you know, you just sit and talk to people, it's great. Met a guy the other day for saying New Zealand. He was on the boat shipping the Auckland Harbour Bridge to New Zealand, so that's a little bit of interesting fact. Just got chatting to him, and yeah, that was great. So today we are in Prius. I picked up this Prius, oh my god, probably 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Oh my god, I had this for like 7 years, this little car. We have had to spend a little bit on it. The biggest thing we had to spend, the biggest amount of money that I've spent on this car is taking it to Toyota and having it plugged in. It cost me 170 quid for them to plug it in and turn the light out. Because when we were bleeding the brakes, because you have to ask the car to bleed its own brakes, the battery in the back went flat, so of course it got all upset, realised there was low brake pressure and threw a light on. No one had diagnostics to do it except Toyota. So I had to pay 170 quid to plug it in and get them turn light out. All the work had been done, all the brakes got back up, because we put a booster kit on it and used booster kit. We did all that, and yet that was as far as we could go. We had to take it to Toyota. Now that goes against my environmental side of it, that this car could have been scrapped because it needed a brake pipe. Now obviously the other videos, we've got the Marina. I've just sent, they want to bring a big thing in this country that any modification on a vehicle is wrong. Now I get why they're doing it, I understand why they're doing it, but you've got to look at your economy and the environment. Okay, it's no point just saying, oh, we're going to keep putting fuel up to get people off the road. That hurts your economy, because in this country it's like 70% tax. So if people stop using fuel, you're losing 70% of your tax, which they don't use on the roads and everything else. It goes into the coffers for the rest of the country. So they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. They've weakened the taxation on vehicles that are environmentally friendly, as in emissions, which is good, but it's removing your revenue. Now I am privileged in the fact that I run 2 Priuses. Well, I've got a dead Prius at the minute, so both of which would have been scrapped. Now the other one I use as a kind of teaching thing. So there'll be another video on that one, which is actually on this YouTube. So I bought my Prius, silver Prius, or commonly known as Scarface, because she's battered. She's got a plastic window. I'll give you a tour of her one day. But she, is there a cock? How many noodles? This thing I bought salvage from a salvage yard with very strange damage. Cost me 120 quid in parts. The rest of it was all done by brute force and ignorance, and she's all finished an MOT. Now I've had this, what, 6-7 years now probably, and I love it. I've spent the biggest amount of money, like I just said, was on the dealership, turn light out. She's had brake pipes, she's had probably a couple of sets of brake pads, because we don't use brake pads. So she had rears the other day, but it was 30 quid for pads and discs. And I tell you what, it probably took me longer to get the tools out the van and jack the car up, take the wheel locker off, than it did to do the actual rear discs. Fascinating thing to do, brilliant design. And that's what I love about this type of Prius. This is a Gen 2. What an amazing amount of simplicity they've done with it. People get frightened of them when they go wrong because it's a Prius, it's a hybrid. Yes, you can die. Anything on there is orange is dangerous, so don't touch it unless you've got your gloves on. But that's about it really. It's pretty much a basic car, 1.5 litre petrol engine. And then they're just brilliant cars. I mean, my other one's got 290,000. This has only done 150. But I've seen them up 400,000 miles on these Priuses, because they just keep going. I mean, granted, the engines aren't running all the time, and they're more economical in town driving than they are in doing a long distance run like this. I mean, she's probably doing 57 to the gallon, which is okay, but it's the feeling when you're in traffic and it turns itself off and you know you're not costing fuel. That was my biggest gripe. I don't know what other people are like for the environment. I'm sat in a car and I've sort of parked up in traffic and my engine's running, my emissions are going out of the exhaust, whereas this thing I'll just turn off. Possibly a bigger battery, because I would liken it, because I can run down these big hills on the way to Cornwall and overcharge my battery. I've filled it and I've still got more, and you hear the revs come up as it's dumping energy and using the engine brake. Well, it's not very good. Can you not lick your vagina? Oi. No. Just cannot have good staff these days. Can you not lick your vagina on my seat? Oh, it's like having kids. So, the environment. In my life, I decided not to get a big mortgage that I possibly wouldn't be able to pay off. And this was back in the, what would this be, 2000s? 2000? Yeah, probably 2000s. And I went in the bank and they were going, oh, we can loan you all this money. And I was on good money then. We can loan you all this money and you can we'll give you more money so you can do the house up. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute, how can you loan me out more money than the house is worth? And they said, oh, we'll get a new car and all this lot. And I said to the guy, I said, why are you doing this? And he said, basically, we've been told out to loan as much money as we can to people and burden them with debt. Which was fine, because debt's okay as long as you can afford it. Debt only becomes a problem if you outstretch what you can pay back. Now, this was before the big financial crash, where we gave millions to the banks, billions to the banks. Now, the better thing to do with that would have been, they worked out, I think it was like £40,000 per person in the United Kingdom. It was the equivalent of what taxpayers gave to the banks. Now, if you're going to do that sort of quantitative easing, which is basically printing money and giving it to the banks who make money out of thin air anyway, it's a big scam. Money doesn't exist anyway. That's what we need to get. That's the biggest problem we've got with the environment, is money. Yeah, we've got this drive of capitalism that's fucked the planet big time. And it's all money. Okay? It's all money. This obsession with people buying new cars each year. Oh, I must have a new car, which is now gone. But it used to be like, oh, I'm getting my new car. And I've had friends who buy cars 4 or 5 years old. Oh, I'm going to buy a posh car. £1,500 for a gearbox. The car's written off after 6 years because of a clutch. Because you've got to do a clutch, you've got to do a dual mass fireplate, dual mass flywheel. You've got to do the plate. You've got to do the slave, because that's built into the inside of the gearbox now, around the lay shaft. And what's that all about? So the car's wrote off and scrapped because of a clutch, a normal perishable item. And you've only got to look at that Merino. I could probably do a clutch in 3 hours on that thing. Maybe even less if I was geared for it properly in a workshop. Yeah, easily less. And it'll cost you, well, I saw a clutch plate the other day for the Marina for a tenner, brand new. Now, they say we've moved on with technology, not when I look at the way they build these new cars and I take them apart and scrap them. Because you can't, and plus everything's plastic, whereas it would be a metal bracket or a metal thermostat. Yeah, you increase the rate, but you have to weigh up a new car against getting rid of an old car, because they're manufactured, yeah? So when you say, oh, we'll get all these old cars off the road because of the emissions, right? Number one, you get a new car that the manufacturers have altered the software. So if the car sits there with its door open, the emissions wind down, so it passes the emissions test for the MOTs. Then it comes out that they lied to us about the emissions. They pushed us into getting diesels. Now they said, oh yeah, they're really nice for the planet. And I always had it, when you see even a new diesel boot itself down the road, you're still left with a cloud of particulates and nitrous gases. And I always used to think, well, how is that correct? And then you've got all the extra manufacturing of DPFs, of special catalytic converter stuff. You've got things that urea and AdBlue putting in them now. So you've got such an increase when it comes to manufacturing a new car, because the car has to be manufactured. I think one of the big things we need to be looking at is not getting all the cars off the road. We need to be improving the fuel economy. How I can have a Morris Marina that does 37 to the gallon, and I can have a car 50 years later, so it's 1970, right, that Morris Marina, that's doing 37 to the gallon, and I've got my partner's car doing 42. So you mean to tell me in 50 years of technology being put into cars, we've only managed to squeeze a few miles per gallon? And then you've got one of these that I add up to 70 at one point to the gallon. But now you've got new diesels that do 70, I will give you that. But it seems to have taken a long time to get a third increase in the mileage. Whereas air travel, wow, we've certainly come on with that. And now they're even looking at, I mean, I mean, there's an idea of when you descend in a plane, can you not regen the engines to produce electricity? Just an idea, along with my hydrogen idea from the Ring of Fire countries. Another idea which I should do. Actually, I'm going to tell you about that one. My idea. Right, we can build massive, great big oil rigs, yeah? Huge, great big structures to suck the oil out of the ground. Well, either suck it or force water into it and suck it out. Still plenty of oil down there. Can't get it out though. Now, we have around our planet the Ring of Fire. Okay, now going back to geography. See, I never came out with stuff from school because I couldn't write it down. And I found one of my books the other day, and it was I'm on camera. It was all see me, not finished. Why is this not finished? Where's the rest? So, because I couldn't write quick enough, so you get your book thrown at you. Now, my Ring of Fire theory. Now, again, thinking about the economy, because it's all right to come out with these environmental things, but then you're like, oh well, we can't do it because it'll fuck the economy. Right, so you have to come out with other ways of helping the economy and the planet. That's the big balance. You've got to help the economy to go how it is, and you've also, because you can't just suddenly say, oh, I'm going to design this, it's going to sack millions of people around the world, because that's millions of people who rely on their income to live, pay their mortgages, and live in the monetary system that we have at the minute before we get into a resource-based society like the Venus Project. So what we can have is the Ring of Fire countries is where the plate tectonics around the Earth, around the crust, they're incredibly volcanic, incredibly dangerous to live there, and we have this build-up of magma and pressures inside the planet from plate tectonics that are causing it. So what we can do is, my theory is, we make a floating oil rig type thing whose sole purpose is to produce energy from geothermal powers. Okay, geothermal energy. So where the Ring of Fire places is, you've got lava squirting out the ground. You could just go up to it and drill a hole next to the volcano and bang, bingo, all the energy you could possibly want. Now, and I'm talking all the energy. So you've only got to look at lava and see the heat that's coming off lava to realise it's an abundance of magical free energy. And geothermal heat does work. You've only got to look at Iceland, so it does work. And Iceland are now looking into putting a cable to the United Kingdom to transfer power. Yeah, you're going to lose shitloads of power in transporting it such a distance. But if the power is free and hasn't cost anything to the planet, what's the matter? Let's do it. So my idea is to get this tanker or structure that's mobile in case there is an eruption, go around to these Ring of Fire countries, plug down into the geothermal powers. We already know how to drill holes in the ground, we've been doing it for years. Okay, get the geothermal energy out, but they usually use that by steam, by water. Oh, funnily enough, if you're floating on the sea, you've got lots of water. So you use seawater. Now, if you've got an abundance of energy, and people are saying, sorry, there's a load of giant minions in the field that made out of hay. Now, I would overtake, but I can't see shit because of the sun, so I'm not going to risk it. I can't see anything behind my car because of the sun. So, yeah, you got the Ring of Fire. So you have this big boat, it goes along. If you need to use fresh water, so desalinized water, because you can't use salty water in the equipment because it'll wreck it, you then use desalinization plant. You've got free energy, remember. So if you need how many kilowatts of power to desalinize salt water, it doesn't matter, it's free energy. You're not hurting the planet. If anything, you're aiding the planet because you're releasing pressures in these volcanoes. So you're releasing the pressure. So you may even save an eruption or an earthquake. So you then desalinize the water if you have to. You then send that water into another plant With electrolysis, you put electricity in it, you can split the atoms of water, hydrogen. So you get hydrogen and oxygen. Then you can transport the hydrogen around in a similar economic way. Okay, so you're still going to have to put it on the boat, you're still going to have to ship it around the world, you're still going to have to maintain the ships, maintain jobs, maintain manufacturing. So you're still going to help that way. Have no information on how you can transport hydrogen, but we do transport gases around on boats, so it can be done. Okay, we need to look at the hydrogen burning vehicles, maybe even a rotary engine using hydrogen to burn. But I mean, a hydrogen can be burnt in a squeaky pot, you know, squeaky pop in the test tube, so you do get an energy value from it. But the emissions are water, so a little bit of oxygen, a little bit of water. So how good is that for the planet? Yeah, on you go, mate. Yeah, you can go for it, mate. Oh, now I can see. And now he's having to slam his brakes on because he's hit his limiter. Now, is he going to pull in onto a slipway? Yep, he is. That's the level HGV driving these days. God, this little asshole's going too fucking fast. I ain't even going to pull out on him. Look at them. What's some mallet? And then they wonder why they crash. And here comes another one. And then they wonder why they crash. So, that's my ring of fire theory. You know? Can we not do that? Use geothermal energy to produce hydrogen, to ship hydrogen around the world, and then it still has the economic system of transportation giving people jobs that way. But your raw resource energy is free. So you have to think about that. You won't be having to pay for the energy you get, and it'll be limitless. Now, and its way, the problem we've got is moving energy. If you could like have a boat filled with electricity and move the electricity, and then everyone sucks off that, unless we have a national grid, that would be the way to do it from these ring of fire companies. We have a ginormous push for a national grid, a global grid of power where you transport energy from these hot rocks, energy rich companies, countries. Okay, and we use that to transport the energy with an electric grid. Wow. Fucking hell, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? An electricity grid around the planet where we share energy. And we could do it. We could do it, I reckon, if we stopped killing and blowing people up and we got away from the monetary system and we started thinking about sociology and being nice to each other instead of being dickheads. Instead of my car's bigger than your car, my house is bigger than your house. Yeah, instead of all this one-upmanship. Instead of it's all in it for me. I've got to get there quicker than you. So if we get away from that, surely we could rig a national grid. If we can put one cable in from Iceland to here, okay, why can't we do that? And energy prices have doubled in this country. Okay, so think of that. Gas has doubled pretty much overnight, and yet we've built